Hi everyone, this is Daniel with the Oasis Center's College Connection program, and today we're going to be talking about what it means to write well in college. So, today for our Writing Well in College presentation, we're going to have four main parts. We're going to discuss writing essays, writing emails, editing writing, and then resources that are going to be available to you. So we'll start off by talking about essays, first of our four pieces. So, what is an essay? Why does it matter? An essay is essentially a short piece of writing, sometimes called a paper or something like that. It involves multiple paragraphs. Essays are generally used to present arguments. There are many types of essays. They're for research, persuasion, different types of rhetoric, things like that. The reason essays matter are because they are often used in the process of writing an essay. They'll often improve your writing, reading, research skills, your communication skills, things of that nature. Writing essays also promotes critical thinking, and it will introduce you to new arguments and ideas as you are writing the essay itself and as you are conducting research needed for writing your essay. And essays are often the larger cornerstone or a cornerstone of larger projects. So let's say, for example, someone is writing a book. Many books are collections of essays. If you go on to do scientific research, essays are often needed in reports and things like that. And really an essay is just a great opportunity to improve all the skills that I mentioned previously. So, when it comes to the anatomy of an essay, or the skeleton of an essay perhaps, there are really three main pieces. You're going to have the beginning, the middle, and the end, just like in a book perhaps. And each of these pieces is composed of many other pieces. So with the beginning, you have a hook, which is used to grab the attention of whoever is reading your essay. And once you have gotten their attention, you move on to background, and then you present a thesis, or essentially an argument in one sentence or multiple sentences talking about what your essay is going to be about, and then you map out what the rest of your essay will look like. You then move on to the middle of your essay, which is going to often be composed of multiple paragraphs, and that is where you're going to introduce content as well as arguments and analyses in the essay. So you're essentially going to defend your thesis or the statement that you had presented in the beginning of your essay. And once you have done that, you will come to the end of your essay in which you summarize. You're going to reiterate or restate your thesis and explain how you have defended it successfully in your conclusion. And then perhaps you'll make future recommendations based on what you have discussed in your essay. So, I'd mentioned that an essay is composed of paragraphs. Paragraphs are going to be the building blocks of your essays. So within each paragraph, you want to begin a paragraph with a topic sentence. So that's going to be a sentence that clearly presents a main idea for the paragraph. Then you're going to have support sentences which explain and add detail to that topic sentence. You're going to need evidence to back up the things that you are saying. And then once you reach the ending of your paragraph, you're going to want to have a conclusion, explain why you're discussing why it matters, and then you're going to move on. You're essentially going to use the last sentence to segue into the next paragraph, which will have its own topic sentence and so forth. Some do's and don'ts for essays. You do want to give yourself plenty of time to write them. You want to be descriptive. You want to make sure you are following the prompt given or answering the questions that are being asked of you for an assignment. You want to make sure you take breaks so that way you don't rush yourself, and you always want someone to look over your work. As far as don'ts, you certainly never want to plagiarize. You can get in serious trouble, sometimes even fail a course or be expelled from a school for plagiarism. You want to make sure that you're not going over or under a word count. You don't want your essay to be too long or too short. You don't want to use cliches. You don't want to rely on spell check. Go over things with your own eyes. And you want to make sure you're not biting off more than you can chew. You don't want to write about too much or too little. You want your ideas to fit into the size of your essay. Next, we're going to go over emails. Why do emails matter? Emails, even if you're not sending and receiving many emails right now, they are in fact the primary mode of communication for professionals, whether that be in education, in the business realm, all kinds of things. That's the main way people are going to get in contact with one another. Other modes being communicating in person or over the phone. Emails are a great mode of communication for contacting someone you may not normally see in person due to either time differences or geographic differences. If someone lives, 1,000 miles away, emailing them is great. If you need to send electronic files or send the same thing to a large number of people, emails are great for that. And email threads are also great for keeping a written record of communication. So as you are in contact with someone, there's essentially a receipt for that communication. You can go back and see what you had said, what the person you're communicating with had said, things like that. The anatomy of an email. So just in the same way we talked about kind of the skeleton of an essay, we're going to talk about the skeleton of an email. So every single email needs to have these different components. You need a subject line, which is going to be informative and appropriate. You want to greet the person you are sending the email to by name in a greeting. In the body of, or essentially the main text of your email, you want to effectively communicate your question or statement. You want to sign off or thank the person that you're talking to, just in general, for being willing to read your email. And then you put your name at the end, so you let the recipient know who you are. And here's a great example of an email. So going from the top down, you see the person being addressed, brown.professor@college.edu. In the subject line, you see science grade. You see a greeting with Dr. Brown. Then below that, you see the body text. You see the sign-off where it says, "Let me know what works best for you." And then the thank you is also part of the sign-off, as well as your name at the end, and then additional details on the bottom that you can also put in the subject line. Email do's and don'ts. When emailing someone, you do want to have a clear subject line so that the person receiving your email is not confused about the reason you're contacting them. You do want to use a professional greeting, so you'd want to say, "Hello, Mr. X," or "Miss Y." Or if they have a specific title, perhaps you would say, "Hello, Dr. X," "Hello, Professor Y." You do want to proofread your message, make sure there aren't any typos or anything like that. You want to make sure to reply to all emails that are sent to you from people who are reaching out to you individually. And of course, you want to keep private material confidential in the same way you wouldn't share sensitive information over the phone or through text. You also don't want to do that. You also want to keep things confidential in an email. When writing email, you don't want to forget your signature. Emails are generally kept strictly professional, so unless you are emailing someone you're very close with, you want to avoid humor or avoid assuming that the person you're emailing instantly knows what you're talking about. You certainly do not want to send angry emails. If you are upset, take time to collect yourself and then send a professional email. And you don't want to email in the same way you would draft a text message. For our next portion, we're going to be going over editing. What is editing and why does it matter? Editing is going to be something you're going to see in no matter what you're writing, no matter what the occasion is, no matter what the audience is, editing is incredibly important. There's a great figure of speech, measure twice, cut once. So for example, if you're a carpenter and you're making a chair, you can't cut twice. If you cut too short, you can't add that length back. If you're cutting hair and you cut it too short, you don't get a do-over. So in the same way, you want to edit a piece of writing before you send it, before it's too late. Editing is also a great time to help your audience find clarity and not be distracted by technical errors in your writing. Errors in writing can be distracting. The people you're addressing may not take you as seriously. And it can also give your audience the impression that you have not put a lot of effort into the piece that you're writing. So it's important to edit for many reasons. Different types of editing. So, moving from the top down, we have different types of editing, starting with our kind of bird's eye view and developmental editing. So that would be big picture editing, so thinking about what you're actually going to be writing about, the kind of topics that you're going to include or not include. Then you move to line editing, which is a little more specific. So you're going to edit line by line. So that line by line can also be synonymous with looking at individual sentences, things of that nature. And you want to make sure that your writing style is consistent as well. Then moving on to copy editing, this is where you would essentially edit in an even more narrow sense. So you'd be focusing on grammar, you'd be focusing on punctuation, the order of words within the sentences themselves. And then lastly, you'd want to do a proofread, which is essentially last looks. So that'll be checking for formatting, checking for additional typos and punctuation, things of that nature. So again, developmental editing is the most broad, moving from line to copy editing, which is the most specific, and then a last look or a last glance would be found in proofreading. Do's and don'ts for editing. You do, along with most of your writing, want to take breaks often. Give yourself plenty of time to do any of the editing, any kind of writing. You also want to be willing to remove. Don't be afraid to delete sentences, delete words, even delete paragraphs if you find that they're not in the service of what you were writing. When editing, it also serves to read out loud, so that way you can catch errors that you may not normally catch when reading something in your head. It is important to go line by line as well. You don't want to skip over any portions, even if you are editing a larger document or something like that. And perhaps the most important item is asking a friend or peer for help. So two sets of eyes are better than one, so it's always a great idea to have someone look over something in addition to you to make sure it looks good. You don't want to edit as you go. You don't want to rush it and do it all at once. When editing, you don't want to leave in more content than what is necessary. And again, you don't want to do it all by yourself. A good piece of writing should never be done completely alone. Now we're going to briefly move on to resources. What are resources that are available to you when continuing the mission of being able to write well? So my personal favorite, which I have used all the way through high school, all the way through college, and continue to use in my professional life, is Purdue OWL, which is Purdue University's online writing lab. So Purdue OWL offers free resources for writing, research, grammar. They have style guides for different types of professional writing. They have resources for English language learners, things like that. All you have to do is look up Purdue OWL, find the correct Purdue OWL web link on a simple Google search, and then you'll arrive there. You should also take advantage of whatever college or university writing center you have. Most schools will have a writing center. I would strongly encourage you to take advantage of that. You can often schedule appointments with people who are either paid to be writing coaches or have student volunteers. And lastly, it is always a good idea to work with faculty and or fellow students or peers when looking at writing as well. That's been a recurring theme in terms of advice or things you should do when doing essays, emails, all those kinds of things, is have other people look at your work. Moving on to resources specifically at Nashville State. Nashville State Community College does have its own learning center and writing center. You can email Angela Stockdale at angela.stockdale@nashvillestatecommunitycollege.edu. And there is a phone number and website link there as well. And that is actually going to conclude our presentation on writing well. Thank you for your time. Again, my name is Daniel with Oasis College Connection, and I hope you have a good rest of your day.